wanted to hop on and talk to you guys a little bit more personally about my channel and my journey here on YouTube and what I'm hoping to gain from all of this. I know when I started, I wasn't quite sure the direction I wanted to go in. I was very much drawn to music and celebrity and gossip and things like that, because I mean, why not, right? It's the most popular content at times, you know, out there. It's salacious, you know, it gets a lot of attention, right? And it's just easy, low-hanging fruit. But then the name of the show is Chilindrinas, Mas Finas, and Chilindrinas is a breakfast, and Mas Finas means more refined, or like more refined. And so it's, to me, to embody an idea of you know, morning conversations and musings and things that you want to put into perspective before you start your day or as you wrap your day up, because I believe very much in the power of the mind and meditation and what you put into your mind and body, how it shows up in your life. You shouldn't take that for granted. And so I had lots of hesitancy in moving towards more of the political spectrum, just because I want to keep things light. I like to find some joy in between, and I think that politics is a very low vibrational energy and sometimes can get very toxic. However, being that politics really does rule almost every area of our lives, I find that it's hard to stay away from that, especially when my outlook on life has a lot to do with integrating a lot of the unseen forces and history and common threads and collective consciousness into a more physical and tangible form, and be able to see the trajectory and the connections in some of the physical manifestations of the esoteric, right? And so politics is all built on esotericism. If you do not know much of it or don't practice anything from, you know, astrology to tarot cards, transcendental meditation, astral projection, things like that, you are missing out on a whole nother world. And trust and believe, the media, politicians, companies are using, you know, nations are using astrology and that esoterica for their benefit. And if you are ignorant of the power that you have in that process, then you are going to more than likely act to your own detriment, or allow them to act to your detriment. When you don't act, you are as cooperative as a actively cooperating force, right? And so my channel is an attempt to be an active force to balance some of the lies that we see in the media. And so a lot of the attention I gave initially in politics was to Black politicians in my local area. I'm in Chicago. Tiffany Henyard in Dalton was doing and is still doing some pretty amazing things in a notorious sense, maybe allegedly quite a legal sense. Soon we'll see. And then you had Eric Adams, who was or is a mayor of a sanctuary city, who was quite vocal with how Biden was handling the border, and how he had abandoned essentially the sanctuary cities to find their own funds after they were given whatever their initial amounts were, and had to make up those costs. And so my own experience living in a sanctuary city in Chicago, and then having a very incompetent mayor, Brandon Johnson, who was a Chicago public school teacher for a few years, taught social studies, and then just ended ended up in politics, and is showing us that is not enough to do the job. When you're a CEO managing billions of dollars and millions of people, you need to be a lot more cognizant of what you are doing and who is around you and how you're spending that money. And it seems as though he's not making those connections. And then there's the other agenda with CTU and some socialist policies. And you can see that it's pervasive in some of the staff that he's kept around him. And so in seeing those injustices and how the migrant crisis was being handled, I know some people will still say that, anyone who spoke out or is speaking out against how the sanctuary cities and how the Biden-Harris administration handled this crisis, would say that, anyone who critiques this is being unfair or unjust or callous or even racist. But I beg to argue that we are just concerned Americans who want our tax dollars to be used in the best ways. And this is not one of those ways. And especially if there's no organization and if we're not following laws and we're allowing criminals and people who are not doing the right processes to just do, whatever it is that they want. I personally know of a migrant from Venezuela. He and I just struck up conversation as I, realized that he spoke Spanish and didn't really speak any English. And then the conversation progressed. And so he's in my neighborhood, so I see him quite often. And every time I see him, we talk. And he is one of those individuals who would not be able to return to his country, according to what he's told me. He has an asylum, a clear or a not necessarily clear, but it sounds like a legitimate asylum claim, unlike some individuals who've already been denied their asylum because, they've migrated for economic reasons or other things that are not covered under the asylum. The asylum laws are protecting you from persecution in your home country. And so he says he was part of the military there, and that he had done some things and may have been involved in some things that would land him in jail for the rest of his life. And you can see the fear in his eyes. He's genuinely scared to go back. But on the other side of that, I asked him if he'd applied for the TPS or the asylum. He'd been here for some years before it expired, and he had not. And his rationale was just that he, just didn't think of it, didn't necessarily know the time frames. He'd been listening to gossip and things like that. And then also he just honestly didn't want to put himself on the radar because of, what the context of his migration was and him being in fear. And then also recently we were talking about how the election has changed things with Trump being elected and the border czar Tom Homan's declarations that he is going to start sweeping deportations of illegal immigrants who are the more dangerous or who have committed crimes or have crossed multiple times and things like that. And so he says he's a lot more vigilant and a little paranoid, but he also totally understands. And even in his situation, knowing that he has not gotten a legal status, he says he's not worried because he knows he's not committing any crimes. He's just going to work every day, paying his bills, trying to become a upstanding citizen with whatever other recourses he may have left. And so, I definitely, always bid him my best and try to, point him to whatever I think, he could or should be doing. But you can only do so much. And, I don't know necessarily all his traumas in his story as to why, he may or may not be able to or want to pursue the legal means of staying in this country, right? And so I say that to say, I have personal experiences, not just with him, but with other Latinos, other undocumented persons, other migrants of other nations and things like that. And so that perspective and me being from Chicago and living here my whole life, and having struggled and having lived, in some really bad situations, and have been homeless and having struggled as a single mother here in this city my whole life. Not saying I struggled my whole life, but I definitely had my struggles in Chicago. I can understand where people are suffering on many sides of this. And so my initial purpose in bringing light to the migrant issue was, it's a humanitarian crisis, and it's always been a humanitarian crisis, but we have to be humanitarians not only to the migrants that are fleeing to the United States and in our sanctuary cities, but also to the residents and the taxpayers of those sanctuary cities. And so the disregard for the citizens and taxpayers of Chicago, for the migrants and temporary residents who may or may not have done illegal things or crossed the border illegally, is a touchy subject. It will continue to be one, but I am not going to shy away from it, because it is an issue that affects a lot of people. We had the death of the migrant child in one of the shelters. So there was a lot of concern around health and things like that initially that brought me to that issue. And then obviously just some of the rhetoric that was coming from the left, and some of the misinformation and suppression of some of the stories, just like Laken Riley, whose killer was just convicted. I believe his name was Jose Ibarra, for her murder. And he was an illegal migrant. So it is sad that the media was suppressing that story and twisting it and trying to make it as though Trump was using it as some political point, when honestly it's just a genuine story of how things can go wrong when we don't vet people and require that laws are followed. Eric Adams even said, we can't hold these people. We can't arrest these people. We can't force them to work. We have to help them. This is all kind of like our hands are tied and we're not getting help. And then our cities are just dwindling and suffering. So for anyone who's saying that this is not causing a mass issue in city budgets, you have your head in the sand. For anyone who's saying that this isn't a public health issue, you have your head in the sand. For anyone who says that this is not a safety or a criminal justice issue, you have your head in the sand. And obviously it's a worldwide humanitarian issue. But, as I was saying, my Venezuelan friend says that he knows that a lot of the, especially Venezuelan migrants, are very used to socialist policies. They're very used to being cared for by the government. And many of them are not here to work. And this is out of his mouth and many others. And it's not to paint them with a broad stroke, but you have to think about the mentality and the upbringing and the culture of people that are coming here, and how if they're not being told that they need to do as they do, in Italy or in Rome or in America, do as the Americans do, and no one's enforcing the laws, and everyone's coddling them, and then they're coming from that mindset, nothing's going to change them. And so essentially we're bringing the third world to our cities. And if you can't see that, I'm sorry, but you need to open your eyes. So this is not a channel about division. This is not a channel about hatred. This is not a channel where I hate women. I want to also address that. Any of my critiques of women is because I, as a woman, know what toxic women do. I know what toxic femininity does. I myself have embodied toxic femininity, at times still do. None of us are perfect. We are all a work in progress, right? And so that idea of girl power, and we had the Barbie movie, and there's so much about femininity and the matriarchy coming forward to kind of challenge and squash the patriarchy. But if we're not doing it in an enlightened way, especially when we have the reins of politics in our hands, we're not going to get far. And so when I see that many women were mobilized behind assaulting their own wombs and unborn children, rather than the dangers in their own neighborhoods and the things that could affect their children that are alive, or other children that are alive day to day, or improve the world that they're birthing children into, so they don't have to worry about getting those abortions, because 90% or more are retroactive birth control, because essentially, people don't want to have babies that they've already, committed to creating for various reasons. And sometimes, you know, there are things that, you know, you wouldn't want to bring a child into the world, but some things are avoidable, and really we just have to work to make a better world. I think, you know, trying to put out the smoke without looking for the fire is essentially what we're doing when we use abortion as a social corrector. And so that is my take on that. I just wanted to kind of clear up some of my philosophies, because I don't want anyone to think that I am here for division or hate. That's the last thing I'm here for. I'm here for unity. I'm here for thought. I'm here for knowledge. I'm here for expansion. I'm here for growth and a prosperous future for America and the world and our children. I adore women, and I adore people of all walks of life. Anyone who knows me personally knows I have friends from every corner of the world and every background you could think of, and I am constantly trying to bring people together from, you know, every aspect of my life, because I feel like that's where the magic happens, is when we can get together in spite of our differences and share ideas and find some common ground and ways to, you know, make our lives easier and happier and healthier and whole. So I believe that's all I wanted to say. So let me know how you guys feel about how things have gone over the last year. I just wanted to kind of just review like the last year I've been on here and what I've been doing, and how this journey has progressed and where I hope it goes. This is, you know, a part-time thing, and so I'm not as regular as I'd like to be. But believe me, I do want to touch on many of the issues that are affecting Chicagoans, especially because I love this city. Like I said, I was born and raised here, and it is my whole heart. God bless us all.